I'm Insomniac, and this is a Mini Cooper watch.
Who are you?
Insomniac.
Alright, so before I get this review started, I'd like to give a big shout out to Caleb for sending this watch in. Super appreciate that. Anybody who has any watches you'd like to see reviewed on this channel, not necessarily to donate to the channel, but to be reviewed and then insured and sent back, email me at shoulditimethis@gmail.com. I will tell you where to send the watch. Alright, well, let's jump right into it. The case on this watch is interesting. Starting with the main structure, the machining is pretty well done, and there's actually a little bit more to the shape of this case than you would think if you look at it closely. The sides of the case are a standard flat round wall around the dial, but above the split towards the top, you'll see that the outer area of what I would refer to as a blank fixed bezel here is angled before resolving to the flat surface before the crystal. The larger detail though is on the lugs. There's actually a lot of good compound curving and angling going on here. From the top view, you can see that they angle inward from the case towards the strap, and that the tips of the lugs are angled a bit, which supplies the distance needed for the strap to fit without making the lugs appear longer than they need to. From the side, you'll notice that the lugs curve downward slightly, and if you look at where the tops of the lugs meet the sides, you'll notice another nicely curved surface that connects the tops with the sides. The lug details are definitely subtle, but nice to see here. The crown, although fairly plain and uninspired, is a great size compared with the dial visually, as well as functionally for adjusting the time and date on this watch. The one slightly confusing thing about this case is the finishing. The quality of the finishing is pretty good overall, but I don't exactly understand the mix of matte and polished blacks. The sides of the case, plus the sides and bottoms of the lugs, are all polished. But the tops of the lugs and upper portion of the case is all matte black, kind of a brushed finish. Now, I will admit that the matte black has a better flow with the lackluster black of the rubber band, but why not make the whole case matte? Or why not make the whole case polished? A matte black band would go with a polished case, just not sure why they went with both. It's not a big deal, it's just a bit odd. Lastly, we have the case back. It's a snap-on type with the Mini Cooper logo largely engraved into it, general information about the watch engraved around the outside, and another interesting contrast choice with a polished beveled edge. So I don't fully understand the mixed finishes, but it's a pretty good case overall. The dial on this watch is one of those dials that upon first glance looks pretty cool, but upon further inspection leaves a lot to be desired. One of the biggest examples of this is the actual base of the dial. It's a flat black textured pattern with small black squares alternating vertical and horizontal grooves. It doesn't look bad at all just left alone as that pattern, but this is an automotive style themed watch, so what I'm assuming is that this pattern is supposed to mimic carbon fiber, and if that's the case, this is one of the worst attempts at fake carbon fiber I've seen. So if you ignore the intention behind that pattern though, it looks pretty good. Next we have the indices and numerals. They're all orange on a black backdrop, so excellent contrast here. At the very outer edge of the dial you have a minute track, or you should have a minute track, but instead this brand decided to double that track as a 24-hour scale. That's not unheard of, but let's be honest, nobody's buying a Mini Cooper watch for a GMT-esque function, so a standard minute track with numerals for every 5-minute interval would have been more useful here. Under that, you have the numerals and markers for the hours, which are large and easy to read, and I like the font they used for the numerals. Under the 12, you have what appears to be the thinnest applied brand logo ever. It's more like a thick sticker, but it looks pretty cool, so no big deal. Then above the 6, you have water resist and 100 feet. First of all, I have no idea why a few brands use the term water resist instead of water resistant, but it's stupid. Second, 100 feet. Most watches list the water resistance in meters or atmospheres. This one's in feet. And I bet that 100 feet is a lie. Honestly, I wouldn't take a swim in this watch. It has no screw down crown and it has a snap-on case back. So ignoring that and moving on. At the 3 o'clock position, you have an orange bordered date window shoved up against the 3, black numeral on a white disc, which sticks out like a sore thumb here. It would have been a much better flow with a white numeral on a black disc. Last, we have the hands. I really like the design of all 3 hands, but there are 2 big problems. First of all 3 hands are too short for this dial. If this were a 40mm, maybe that would work, but on this dial, none of the hands come close to touching their respective tracks. Even in terms of width, the minute and hour hands look too thin based on the diameter of the dial and the boldness of the hour markers, but perhaps the biggest fail with these hands is the skeletonization of the hour and minute hands. At first, I thought that's awesome, that's a great idea, so when the hands pass over the date window, you can still read the date. But sadly, I was wrong. The solid orange portions of the hands pass over the date window instead of the skeletonized portions, so I'm actually not sure why they didn't just go with solid hands. Longer story short, it's a cool looking dial at a glance, but not very well thought out. The only usable complication on this watch is the date at 3 o'clock. As I said earlier, black numeral on a white disc, which doesn't really look great inside an orange border and behind a black dial, and you can read the date, but the numerals are small and for some reason the numerals aren't centered inside the circular date window, so the left side of the window crowds the date. So it works and serves its purpose, but it definitely could have been better. Time at a glance on this watch is very good. The contrast between the orange indices, numerals, and hand tips against the black dial is excellent. The dial has no clutter, and all three hands have good pointed tips to them, which makes figuring out which indices they're pointing to very quick and simple. The only thing keeping this watch from getting a perfect score in this category is the hand situation that I discussed in the dial section. The hands are all too short for this dial. If the minute hand were closer to the minute track, time at a glance would be perfect. Accuracy with this piece is what you would expect from a Japanese-made quartz movement. I said it when I got it over a week ago, and the time is dead on to the minute still. The only small subtraction here is due to a common issue that I see with most cheap quartz watches with dead seconds, and that is its lack of consistency when lining up with the minute indices. For half of the dial at least, the second hand stops in between indices, which doesn't make it any less accurate in terms of measuring time, but it looks lazy. The strap that comes with this watch is definitely a function over form situation. It's rubber, it has an unnecessary diamond plate style texture between the fake links on the outer edges, and the buckle is plain and cheap looking. Where it gains points is in the function category. It's a thick rubber, so it's durable and should last for a long while, and the free loops hold the excess strap in place wonderfully, and it feels sturdy on the wrist. And most importantly, it's comfortable. So not the most aesthetically pleasing strap or band to look at, but it does work with the overall look of the watch, and it's comfortable to wear. Last but not least, we have value. As of the time of this review, I found this watch for sale on one site for $136. $136 really isn't a lot of money for a watch, but there also really aren't any distinguishing features to make this watch worth any more than any other quartz watch with a standard time and date function. Unless you're a Mini Cooper fan. If you're buying it for the sporty automotive theme and you like the fact that it's actually branded as a Mini Cooper watch, it's comfortable, accurate, and not a bad looking watch overall. If you couldn't care less about Mini as a brand, then there are definitely watches as nice or nicer for the same price or less. So anyway, another shout out to Caleb. Thank you very much again for sending this in. I definitely never saw one of these, so it was a cool piece to have in for review. Remember to email me with the email address I have in the beginning of the video if you have any watches you'd like to see me review on this channel. And if you would like to support this channel and see a lot more watch content coming to you more often, there is a Patreon account, link at the top of the video description. Check that out, support over there, you get some cool rewards, and you get 1 week early access to all of my watch reviews. And that's it. I will see you all at the next one.